You go.
Hey, welcome to Storytime with Ellie, and I am Ellie. And today we will be speaking with Tony Mantor. Get ready to be blown away by the extraordinary talent of Tony Mantor. This American singer songwriter, pianist, and producer has an incredible career spanning decades. He has produced chart topping records, worked with legendary performers, and even made his mark as an artist. Tony's musical expertise has reached international shores, and his dedication to nurturing talent is unmatched. With numerous awards and accolades under his belt, Tony continues to push boundaries and captivate audiences with his music. We want to welcome Tony Mantor to Storytime with Ellie. Welcome, Tony. Hey.
Hey,
Hey, Tony. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Great to have you on. Um,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Man.
Great. I'm gonna hit you with a question that really just kept like hitting me. Like I gotta ask him this question. Today in the digital age, we how do artists make money? How do they make money with, back in my day, we had records, CDs, cassettes. We went to a store and we would buy them. Today we have Spotify. We have all these other where we just pay a certain amount per month. Would you be able to answer that for me? How do they make money, the artists today?
Well, um, I get that question a lot.
Oh, sorry.
Um, that's not a problem. It's on everybody's mind because
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the music business has changed so drastically over the last 30 years. When when you go back to like the mid 90s, you had just like in Nashville, for example, you had like 25, 26 major record labels. And back then, they wouldn't have a problem investing into an artist, even if the first couple of years they didn't make a whole lot of money and they was developing them, building a name for them. And then once they started making hit records, then they would put them out there, they would perform, they would sell merchandise, albums back then. And and then it would start really developing and growing. In today's market, that doesn't happen as much because the development process is done more through the independents and the development companies like what I do. We take and we go out there and we produce them. We get them out there. We expose them as much as we can. And then if we get enough followers and enough social media going, then at that point in time they might look at possibly getting them out there and doing something. Um, you brought up Spotify and all that, but I mean, it started out with like Napster and all that, and it really, really hurt the songwriter because back in the '80s, the '90s, if a songwriter got just an album cut, they could easily, if the artist was out there performing and even if it didn't become a single, it just was an album cut, a lot of songwriters could make themselves 10, 15, $20,000. Fast forward to
Wow.
today,
Mhm.
they don't make that kind of money because if you unless they get on a Reba, Garth Brooks, Taylor Swift, some big name that's out there selling merchandise and CDs and all that all the time, they'll make big money off from people like that. But for the intermediate artists, the ones that aren't the superstars but still a celebrity status, unless they're out there performing all the time, selling merchandise, the songwriter doesn't make as much money. So to answer your question about the artist end of it, the
Yeah.
only way the artist can make money is the artist has to get recognized as an entity and then be able to get booked and then go through the small clubs, build themselves to a more, go start out in that 100-seat venues. Then hopefully they build it up to 300-seat venues. Then hopefully they get it to the 500, the 1,000. If they can just keep building and doing it that way, then they've got opportunity of selling merchandise and selling CDs, because even though CDs are going away because of streaming, there's still a lot of people that will buy a CD at a concert. So
I didn't even know
that's
they made
kind
them.
of the way they make money, is just by getting out there, performing, and selling everything they possibly can sell, while they're at that concert.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you think it's harder today to get into the entertainment business?
Um, it's
There's got to
harder.
be competition.
It's harder in, well, let's see. Back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s,
Hmm.
it was difficult to get out there because you didn't have social media. You didn't have, you really had to get out and perform. But there was a lot of these companies, these smaller venues, that would take chances on artists. They would say, we'll give you a chance. We'll, pay you $400 or $500, or, and come in, and they was making the money off the drinks and food if they had it, and then if they didn't make what they wanted to at the ticket sales, then they would and these venues would build, kind of like the major labels. If they had an artist that would do well, they would build them, they would develop them, and bring them back, and then all of a sudden they're selling out. But today, I mean, they look at your social media, they look at how many followers you've got, they look at so many things, and it makes it really, really hard for these artists to get a start,
Yeah.
because social media doesn't tell it. I mean, it's like, I've got a friend of mine that lives out in LA, and she's probably got, I don't know, 30, 40, 50,000 people that follow her. But I guarantee you that if you put her in a venue, that she might be lucky to sell 50 tickets out of that thing, but she's got 30,000 people that follow her.
Wow.
Just because people follow you doesn't mean they're going to go out and see you. So that's where you got to build it. You've got to take and just do so many other things. And these venues and labels and everything, they've got to stop looking at the social media, because social media doesn't tell everything. It's only a small part of the entity.
Yeah, so it's like they're not really focusing on talent today, or is that wrong to say that? It's right.
No, they do. What they do. I mean, you got to have a certain amount of talent, but
Or they're going by their social media. How many people are following them?
yeah. I mean, but you got to stop and think. A major label, okay? I don't know how many people realize this, but to put a hit record out there, a major label will spend anywhere between $250,000 and $500,000.
Wow.
And then if it gets really, really going, they could spend up to $1 million over a period of a year, building and developing that artist. So they've got to have a certain amount of talent of something for a label to go out there and be willing to invest that kind of money into an artist to try and build them. But the difference is back in the 90s, if you sold 200,000 CDs, 2,000 albums, whatever, and you were like king or queen. Today, if you sell 200,000, tomorrow you're out the door. Because they just go on numbers. And I really believe that, especially in country, they didn't realize what they were doing. They made some mistakes, because when Achy Breaky Heart and songs like that started coming out, and they started going after the younger kids to develop the country market, to make country kind of cool. What they forgot about is, stop and think about this. In 1 year, you had the Backstreet Boys, you had NSYNC, and you had New Kids on the Block. And each time one would come out, the kids, the 15-year-olds, the 12-year-olds, whatever age they were that were following them, would start following the new boy band, and the one that they were following, they kind of pushed them off to the side. And then when country started doing that, they did the same thing. They started going after these young kids, and I guess, they didn't stop and realize that it's not what you do for me yesterday, it's what you did for me today. And if you're not doing it today, they'll find somebody else that is. Back But if you roll it back to the 50s and the 60s, when Johnny Cash and Loretta Lynn and people, Patsy Cline, people, as soon as people started liking you, you had a fan for life. But
Yeah,
with the
it's so
kids in the
different.
90s and 2000s, you had a fan for 6 months to a year until the new kid came out with another single. So it's changed.
You're talking about like record labels and stuff, but like this day and age, I feel a lot of people are going the independent route. How do you feel
They
about
are.
artists going the independent route versus collaborating with a big label, big record label?
Well, major labels have kind of always owned the the buildings, so to speak, and the buildings are the radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the top 200 markets across the United States, an independent will not get in that chart. I mean, I've been fortunate enough. I've recorded a few independents, and we've gotten into the monitored markets in the top 40, but it's really, really hard, and whereas a major label can call up a New York #1 market in the New York and say, hey, look, let's make a deal. You want something here, we want something here. Let's make a deal, and we'll give you so many shows for this artist to come into your area, and you can sponsor it. So there's so many things that a major label can do that an independent can't. And back when Spotify and iTunes and all those markets were being taken over by the independents, so to speak, that's when they kind of grasped and had a leg up on some of the major labels. But the one thing that an independent always has to remember is that when you have a major label and they've got millions of dollars that they can spend, they will figure it out. They will hire somebody, and they will hire a group of people and say, okay, go out there and let's find a way where we can get our artist into these iTunes charts and all this, and kind of take control again. And money wins over most of the time. So it's like to answer your question about independence versus majors, an independent is always the best way to go if you can. Because independents they have more control of when they put their product out. They have more control of what their product's going to be. They have a lot more control of what they can do, whereas a major label is telling them what to do. But they have to stop and remember one thing. The music business is a business. It's like if I decided that I wanted to go into New York, and I want to open a clothing store. Okay, I'm going to have to either go borrow the money from a bank, or I'm going to have enough money myself to where I can go get rent the building, stock the clothes, hire the people, do the advertising. I have to do all that. That comes out of my pocket. And I have to find out the best way to do it. When you have a major label, they've got that kind of money, and they can go in and they can just take and blitz it, and ultimately they can outduel you because they've got more money. But an independent has got to remember that they're paying for everything themselves. So if they go out there and they want to get advertising, they got to spend their money for it. If they want to take and go into the studio, they got to spend their money for it. Whereas a major label will spend the money and the artist will pay it back on percentages. But the thing is if an artist doesn't have that kind of money, then unfortunately they're going to have to try and get that major label, because it's a business and it's all about the money.
Wow. Quick question about your production and development company, Plateau Music, became an independent record label. Can you share with us some of the challenges and triumphs you experienced while building that?
Yeah, in 1993, I moved to Nashville, and I opened up Plateau Music as a production development company. So I worked with singers, songwriters, doing productions and giving them the highest quality project I could give them, so that we could pitch them to the major labels. Then in 2005, I had an artist that didn't want to wait. Because, like, for example, I had an artist in front of a major label, and that label really liked my artist. And they said to me, we'll sign her right now. But the problem is it was going to be a year and a half before they could release the singer to radio.
Oh
because
my
they
gosh.
Yeah, I mean, because they've just got a certain they got the pipeline of things that they do, and they've got contracts to follow, and so they plan things out, far ahead. Whereas an independent can drop it tomorrow, but a major label has got groups of people that go over what they release and when they're going to release it and what they're going to do.
Oh yeah.
So
It's like a union.
yeah, so I had a singer in 2005 that didn't want to wait. Because I explained to her, I explained, to everybody that was in her entourage that, I could pitch her around to the majors, but it could take a year or so before we could get a deal. And then once we get a deal, it could be another year before they release it. You just don't know what the deal's going to be.
Wow. And
So,
what would the alternative be to that?
well, then in that case, what we did is we actually released to radio ourselves, and we bypassed the majors, and we got some hit records out there, and we worked it, and we built it, and just kept that development process, which is what major labels do. So it's a process. So each time that I did that, I moved up. I got people in the charts. Then I started working with like I worked with Jackie Wilson's son, Bobby, for about 8 years, and took him to radio and got him developed, got him performing, and then it just kept working to the point of where I started getting a better name and bigger name out there, more exposed, and people started calling me, hey, can you do this for me like you did for them? So then I have to sit down and I have to listen to them, what they are now. I have to look at them and say, okay, what can I make them? How can I develop them? Can I make them competitive? Can I put them at the radio, and will radio accept it? There's a lot that goes into it that people don't realize.
You don't know. How would we? We only hear the song on the radio.
Exactly.
And we don't know. That's why you're on here telling us or educating us.
And what a lot of people don't realize, that when I work on a record that I'm going to take to radio, if you listen to it, you hear it for 3.5 minutes. I've got 100 hours into that 3.5 minutes.
Wow.
So it takes a lot of time to arrange it, produce it, record it, develop it, mix it, master it. I mean, it's just so much that goes into that people don't realize. And when I see, I've got friends that follow me on Facebook, and I see what they do and all that. And every now and then I'll see an artist that says, my release is going to be released tomorrow, new song coming out. And I'll look at it, and they release it to iTunes and all the streaming platforms.
Wow.
Okay, that's not a release. That's putting it out there. Unless you've got a release is something, unless you've got thousands and thousands of fans, so that when you release a song, they go to iTunes and they download it and buy it. It's not a release. You put it up there, and you just hope that people are going to listen to it. That's kind of like, somebody putting a song on iTunes and putting it out there for all the social platforms. It's kind of like putting a car up for sale, but you don't put any advertising on it so people know it's for sale. You've got to have a promotion and a process behind it, because iTunes, Spotify, all those social media all those streaming platforms, all they are is a store. And you put your song in that store. But if you've got 1 million people that go on to Spotify and iTunes on a daily basis, but they don't know it's there.
No.
And you don't have any advertising promoting it's there, you get lost in the shuffle, and it's really not a release. It's just something that you're putting out there and hoping that it catches wind.
Tony, you said that there was a lot of steps involved from the time that the song is recorded to the time it's released. Just off the top of your head, give me a number here. How many steps does it take from the time you write a song to the time it gets released?
Well, if a person writes a song, the first thing they got to do is do a demo. And it doesn't have to be a full-blown radio-ready demo. It's just got to be good enough so that when you pitch it to a label, or you pitch it to a publisher, or you pitch it to a singer, that they can hear it and say, I kind of like this. Now, if I was to record this, what would I do? So that's the first step, demos. You sync that. And the first step is you play the song.
You taking notes, Ellie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We recorded it.
Yeah.
Let me.
The first thing is you write the song. The second thing is you demo the song. And then once you demo, then it gets in the hands of a producer. Let's say somebody sends it to me. I like it. Then I play it to my artist and I say, okay, here's a song. I want you to listen to it. I like it. I think it's got a lot of potential. I hear what I'm going to do for it. You've got to hear that you can sing it. And hopefully that song resonates with the artist so that they go, yeah, I can see myself singing that. Yeah. So then we get into arrangement, instrumentations. Then we get into the studio. We cut the tracks. Then each day we work on the vocal. Then once we get the vocal done, we work on any background vocals, any overdubs of instrumentation we want on it. Then we get into mixing it. Then once it's mixed and we like it, it's all done. Then we get into mastering. Then we get into duplication. Or if we're not going to duplicate it right away, then we get into putting it on a forum so that we can get it out there to radio, and then we hire promotion, then we hire PR so that we can get interviews for the artist, and you just keep building it. And this can't, and anybody that thinks that I remember, and this is how naive I was at one time. I remember when I was first starting out as a singer, and I'm going, man, if I could just get a top 40 hit record, I've got it made. I'll be able to perform. I'll be able to get out there and one record doesn't do it. You've got to go out there consistently and you've got to keep hammering away, because unfortunately, when people hear you, if they don't hear you coming out with another one right after it, they forget about you. It's kind of like when you sit down at night and you watch a TV show, you see McDonald's. You don't see one McDonald's ad, you see 100 McDonald's ads. And you see it every day, because McDonald's and all these big companies have realized that unless they're out there advertising all the time, that they are going to get forgotten. And that's the same thing on anything, especially music.
Music and anything in life. It has to be repetitive. You have to constantly see it. It almost like gets into your head, right? Like you have to see it. They get in our brain. But same thing with the music. When you hear it on the radio, and we've done it for years, you hear it on the song. How many times we've heard a song and said, I don't know if I care for it. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're like, I think I like that song.
You're humming it.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, I think I like it now. Because you keep hearing it. You keep hearing that same song, and eventually. But just listen to what you're saying. I think we take for granted a little bit about the production of a song and music and what an artist has to go through. We don't realize, or I don't realize, that it's a lot. It's a lot of steps. It's, like you said, we're hearing the finished version of it. They hear it on the radio. We're listening to it. Okay, wow, this is beautiful. But what they had to go through to get it there, it's just amazing and a lot of work.
Does that take away from the creativity that it has to go through so many different channels?
No, actually, if you've got good production, you got a good producer, good management, all that, they all work together and create hopefully a better version of the singer. Because when I take a singer in the studio, and this is something that people don't really realize, how difficult it is when you're in that recording studio recording that music, because I tell everybody that when I bring them in, I'm looking for a vocal performance in the studio. If it's a love song and it's got a few lines, you've got to know how to put the breath on a certain note. You've got to know how to sell that song so that when that listener hears it for the first time, it grabs them and shakes them so that they go, oh, I love that song. And that's an easy thing to do when you're on stage in front of 25,000 people. Because your adrenaline's going, you're pumped, you're rocking, everything's just great. But to bring that kind of energy, which is what you need in the studio and get that vocal performance, that's where I have to bring it out of them as a producer and dig it and dig it and dig it until we get it.
Kind of what Phil's doing with me. like, wait, whoa. Yeah, wow. It's amazing. Oh my goodness. Oh my God! Hold on a second here, Phil. Do you have a quick question you want? Because
Yes,
we were discussing questions we wanted to ask you, and Phil had a couple
Yes.
really good ones.
All right,
so you can hit them.
I tried to do music producing when I was a little bit younger before I got into podcasting. But I really want to know your opinion as a producer, as a singer, as a songwriter. What separates a good song from a great song?
Well, that's a good question. A good song can become a great song, because I've taken songs that people have listened to and they go, I don't know if it's got it. I'm going, well, let's go take it in the studio and hopefully we can get that studio magic. And if we can get that studio magic where the musicians really feel it and then all of a sudden we start building that, and then the singer gets in and gets the vocal performance so that it really, really shines, then a good song can become a great song. Or, but the only thing is what people fail to realize is sometimes you can take a great song and make it an okay song.
Oh,
because
the other way.
because production is listening and adding. It's kind of like when you're cooking,
like a recipe.
You know how to take and put that spice in, but you don't put in too much spice so that it overwhelms it. You just get that taste that, oh yeah, that's it. That's the right one. And it's like we have become a society of perfection, which really, in my mind, hurts the music business. Because if you go back into the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, some of the biggest and best songs were some of the most imperfect ones. If you listen to it, you might hear a piano that was out of tune a little bit. You might have a guitar that's a little off. The singer missed a little note here. But it was so damn good that you didn't want to try and duplicate that because you might not get it again. Because back then, you didn't have the ability to take and cut and paste. You had to redo. So back then we had 2-inch tape. So if we was recording on 2-inch tape and a guy says, I think I can do a better take on that, you was recording and erasing the already better take that he just had. So you better make sure that it's better. If it comes out worse, then you got to take and rework it to try and hope that you get what you lost. So now, because we have Cubase and Pro Tools and all that, so that we can take and have 100 tracks. To back then, we only had 8, 16, 24. So now they can hold something over and keep doing it until they finally think that they've got it perfect. And sometimes perfect is just too smooth. It's not perfect because you're making it. Sometimes it's that edge, that rawness that really sells the emotion that grabs the people that go, oh man, I can feel that.
Wow. Phil has another question. We've given Phil the question.
Okay. No. This is fascinating. It's good to have a perspective of someone who's a part of the industry. Who's been a part of the industry for
We're so
decades.
fortunate to have you on here.
So you've seen everything, really.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, this is something that's new nowadays. A lot of artists are buying back their masters, right?
Yes.
How do you feel about that? And how do you feel about what happened with Taylor Swift, to where she had to re-record a lot of her original tracks because she didn't get access to that?
Well, see, that's where we got into the business, we was talking about a little bit earlier, because actually, I had an artist that was big back in the 80s that came to me. And this is a sad part about the major labels, because the major labels back then, they would sell CDs, because back then it was cassettes too, 8 tracks, whatever it was, and then the back then the major labels had a deal with the artist where they took a certain percentage of the sale kept it and gave the other percentage to the artist. But the problem is the major labels say, let's say, over a period of time, they said, well, we've invested $1 million in you, but you've only paid us back $250,000. So in the 80s, I had, actually just a few years ago, I had a singer that came to me that had some of the biggest hits in the late 70s and early 80s. And she wanted to re-record her biggest hits for the same reason Taylor Swift did and all these others, because when they went to make CDs to sell at their performances, the major label would charge them an upcharge to duplicate those CDs to pay back the money that they owed them. So like this particular artist said that she owed $750,000 to the major label, and she was big in the late 70s and early 80s, and had some of the biggest hits that was out there. There is no way in the world that she actually really owes that money, but in contract she did.
Yeah,
that's a dirty deal.
Yeah,
there's a lot of them. There's a lot of dirty deals out there. So with Taylor Swift buying her masters back, she gets control by re-recording them and doing all that. She gets 100% complete control of it. Because she wrote it. She wrote the song, and now she's re-recording them. So when she puts them out there, she has complete control, and she's making the money back for her investment. Wow. Whereas if she put them out there and bought them off the label, then she's not making as much money. She's having to pay X amount of dollars to the label because they own the rights still.
So much knowledge. Thank you, Tony. My goodness. But I'm going to skip a little bit here. I have like 900 questions, but I'm not going to ask them all to you. But you're working on some projects today, or artists actually. You're working with some artists. Would you be able to share that with us on who and what you have in the pipeline coming up?
Sure. For those people that remember Glenn Campbell, I'm working with his daughter Debbie. Okay. We just finished up a single with her over in the UK, and then probably later this summer, early fall, we're going to release another single over there. For people that remember Happy Days,
yes,
I got Ralph Mouth, which is Donnie Most, and he's kind of a Frank Sinatra, Bobby Darin swing style music. Great singer.
Oh, wow, cool.
And we just finished an album with him, and I just released a single to radio here just the last week or so, and we're starting to promote that.
We actually looked for. Phil, were you able to pull up some of
Yep. Which one do you want?
Yeah. Do you mind? We're gonna play Debbie Campbell a little bit, her song. Yeah, and then also we found Donnie Most, and this is Debbie.
Sunflower.
This is Sunflower, Debbie Campbell. Nice.
I'll let it play for just a second.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, I'm gonna play your song.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play your song.
Well, we're gonna play his in a second, but we got Donnie Most. Just got a little. All right, here we go. And
I like this one.
Yeah, it's great to know that
this one's got a good vibe.
Mm-hmm. What a voice!
I love it.
We didn't know I didn't know he sang.
From Happy Days?
I didn't know he sang. Beautiful.
What a price to pay.
Nice and beautiful.
All right, now I got yours here.
Can we?
Hold on.
Well,
this is him.
Yeah, and Tony's gonna talk a little bit about that. We're just all over. We're gonna this song.
There's a mountain wide and high. It reaches halfway to the sky.
Yeah, beautiful song.
I like this one too, Tony.
Well, thanks.
And Tony's going to explain to us. We just do everything fast here, you know. We're just like, do. We're all good, right, Tony?
No,
I think
that's
I told
good.
you it's going to be like just going to talk. Let's like we were sitting in a
A
room.
little bit of controlled chaos.
Yeah, just
Controlled
a little
chaos.
No problem.
yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, because you had all the like so many things about you that we were like, oh my god, he did this, this.
Yeah, you
Now-
got decades.
Yeah. So if you can explain a little bit about that song and how it came about and where we're
Well-
going with that song today.
Okay, that song that you just played was my first version of that. What I did is I'd been recording people for the last 20, 30 years. Yeah, and then I felt like it's like maybe it's time for me to do one just for the fun of it, but I never got the time. So the pandemic hit, and it's like all of a sudden all the shows are canceled, all the sessions are canceled. I mean Nashville's a ghost town. You can drive down there, and I literally drove down Broadway, and I saw 2 people.
I can't imagine that being a ghost town.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I decided that it was time to maybe work on my own project, something I wanted to do earlier. So I did. I started picking songs that I had either sang before or performed before. And then I had some friends of mine here in Nashville that had written a bunch of great songs. I decided, hey, let's put some of those together. And so this songwriter that I had produced a song that he and another guy had co-written about 5 or 6 years earlier on another artist I was working with. He sends me this song, and it's called Why Not Me? And he goes, I want you to hear this. I think it's one of my better songs I've written. And I heard it, and I'm going, whoa, this is me. Everything that I put out on my social media is about never giving up on your dreams. And really, what was really ironic is a year earlier, I had put out a statement on my social media, and I had used, hey, if you see other people doing it, think to yourself, why not me? And I'm going, man, this is unbelievable. So I produced it as kind of a pop song, and then what I did is I put a steel in it just to give it a little texture, kind of like the Eagles used to do. And friends of mine said when they heard it, they said, "Oh, you produced a country song." And I'm going, no, it's not country, but if you want to call it country, call it whatever you want.
Yeah, because that little steel, it makes it sound like it's got that. That twang. What do we look at?
Yeah, but the thing is, I did it more for texture, kind of like the Eagles. So my promoters in New York, Nashville, LA, and London said, man, you got to release this song. And I'm going, you're crazy. I'm not trying to be a singer again. I'm just doing this for the fun of it, my own enjoyment. And they said, yeah, but there's nothing positive out there right now. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. We need something positive. So we released it, and it made some of the country charts, and it did well over in the UK and Europe and all that. And then I decided that if I was going to take and release the song, I had to have some other good happen to it. So I did a video on it, and I paid tribute to our first responders.
Nice.
So I told a few friends of mine that were police and firemen, hey, I'm going to do this. Just tell anybody that can get me pictures or whatever. And before too long, it got out there. And I was getting pictures from first responders all over the country, And so I put it together. And released it. And it went about, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, and then it kind of died off. And I'm going, okay, that was fun. So I kind of felt like that was it. And then a couple of 3 months later, I had this lady call me out of St. Louis, and she goes, can you do for us what you did for the first responders? And I'm going, who's us? And turns out she's a speech therapist for autistic children.
Wow.
So I'm going, let me think about that. That's going to require a lot of thought, because when you get into something like that, you got to plan out what you're going to do, how you're going to handle it, So I decided that I was going to do it. So I went in and I re-recorded it as an adult contemporary pop, and it's called on iTunes. It's called Why Not Me Remix, So we put it out, and then I created a video for it, and I called it Why Not Me Nashville. So in that video, all the people that joined me in that video are all autistic. So I've got people in that video that you can see just by looking at
I
them
wish
that
I
they
would have
need.
known that. We could have pulled
Well,
that up.
you can go back look at it, but
No, we could have
but
showed it on the, on the podcast.
you can see
clip.
it. You can see in the video that there are people that are in that video that need help on a daily basis.
Oh,
And then you
wow.
can see in that video people that are making their transition into the workforce. I've got a guitar
Beautiful.
player that's fully functional and played in it. And all of a sudden people, it just grabbed a hold. I mean, I've got, I don't know, around 212,000 views on it, I guess. And I've gotten interviews all across the country. I've got interviews in the UK, Australia, Europe, and now it has grown so quickly and so strongly that I'm creating another video, and it's going to be called "Why Not Me, the World."
Wow, beautiful.
And I'm going to have people from all around the world that are in the autistic community join me in that video, and we're going to put that out later this summer. And then it has springboarded into a podcast that I'm starting here next month, and it's going to be called "Why Not Me, the World" podcast. And I'm going to interview people. But I've done a little research on these podcasts, for autism and all that, and there's a lot of them out there, and the highest majority of them tend to talk about the scientific part of it. They talk with doctors, they talk with different people within the community that talk that part about it. But I'm doing one that tells stories, because I've had, in the last 6 months that I've been working on since I released the single "Why Not Me, the World," Why Not Me, Nashville. I've had so many people that have called me up or it's messaged me, and they've told me so many stories about their life or their kids' lives or their brothers. And it's actually overwhelming.
It's amazing.
So I'm gonna take and create this podcast, and I'm gonna talk with people all over the world, and they're gonna tell me their stories.
And I have some for you.
Oh, that's that's great, because I want to include everybody.
Authentic.
I mean, I've got a lady out of London. I've got a lady out of London that's she's a autistic spoken word poet, and she is just so fantastic.
Wow.
She's going to be on it. I'm just going to try and tell stories, and I feel that if, like, let's say somebody's telling me their story from London, and then somebody in New York or LA or Boston or wherever it might be hears that, and they can kind of relate to that story, then hopefully they'll go, wow, this person's going through the same thing as I am, and they'll feel less alone because they know somebody else is going through it too.
Yeah, Tony, my son is very low functioning, and he's nonverbal.
Oh, yeah.
So this would be something great for not for him, but for parents.
Well,
like
how
me.
about you being on my podcast and let's talk about it?
It would be great for parents like me to hear his story and to hear about other people's stories too. So I think that's something that's going to be great.
Well, I had a lady out of Kansas City, and she's started a charity for autistic people, and she says that the one thing that she really likes about what I'm doing is the fact that I don't have anybody that's autistic in my family. I just got friends that have autistic children, and I've got friends that got autistic grandkids and stuff like that. So she says that most of the people that get involved in autism have some autism in their life, and she thinks that it's just really, really good, and she thinks that mine's going to do good because I'm being a voice for the autistic without having anybody autistic in my family. So I'm hoping that she's right, and I can bring some good feelings to people and help out wherever I can.
Okay, Tony, before we go, I want to play a little game. I want to play a little game with you, okay? I have I know during Ellie's intro I put a couple pictures up. So I want to put some of those pictures up again, and I want you to tell me if you remember the story behind the photo, okay?
Okay, all right.
All right. So first one here, we got Miss Share.
Yeah. Okay, the story behind that is I had an artist that I was working with, we did songs that we did a song that supported the military wives. It was called Hero at Home. Really good song, really good singer. And we got involved with the Pentagon and the Fisher House, and so we actually got a chance to was up in Washington doing a I think a function for retiring generals, and we got a chance to go over to the Fisher House and meet and greet some of the parents of that had family in the Walter Reed. So then we got a chance to actually tour the Walter Reed and actually meet some of our military that was there. And there was 3 entities that day that got to tour. It was me and my artist, Cher, and the New York Yankees. So after we finished
Hold on. That's like the biggest range right there.
Yeah.
All my artists are Cher and the Yankees. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, come on. You're so modest.
So afterwards, we went back to the Fisher House, and Cher came over, and I got a chance to sit down and talk with her a little bit, and that's how I met her, was at the Fisher House.
Oh, very cool.
And for those people that don't know the Fisher House is kind of like the Ronald McDonald Hospital for family of kids. Well, the Fisher House is they have 20 plus units where the family of the soldiers, while they're in the hospital, can stay there for free.
Okay. All right. We got
Nice.
two more pictures here. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Got more picture time. Pictures with Tony.
Okay, that was in Washington again, but that was at the what is it? What's that?
Who is that again?
That's Larry King.
That's also Larry
I was
King.
gonna. You put a picture of me.
Yeah.
Larry
that
King.
was at the it was held in Washington D.C. and it's where the journalists all get together with the president, and it was just they just had one just here I don't know, a month or so ago, and it's you've got stars that come there, you've got dignitaries, it's just unbelievable how many people show up there.
Yeah.
And that
Amazing.
and that one was when George Bush was president, and I actually got a picture of him too in there someplace.
Wow.
One more.
Did
one
we
more
see?
here.
Yeah. What was the next? Pull it up.
All right, this one. I don't know who's in this photo though. So you gotta explain to me. I might be a little too young here.
Okay, that was backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, and if you look at if you bring up my site and you look at the name on that and you Google him, he was it was George Hamilton, the 4th and the 5th. And George was, if you Google him, he had a bunch of hits back in the 60s and 70s, and he was truly an ambassador to country music. He would be backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, and he'd sit there and just the stories that he would tell, and it was just fabulous to be around him.
Wow. So much history and knowledge, and amazing speaking with you today, Tony. Amazing. I actually was at the Grand Ole Opry last week when I was in Tennessee, and it was amazing. What a feeling to walk on the stage. That it was like, oh my God. And the history, and I got to tour all those the rooms where it was. If you ever go there, Phil, have you ever been to Tennessee yet?
No, never been to Tennessee.
You need to go to Tennessee, and actually, Tony, you're the one that suggested to go to the Grand Ole Opry. Just go.
Yeah.
I said, and I'm glad I did it. And oh my God, it was fantastic to stand on.
It
there,
is.
just to think, yeah.
Even if you don't like country music, it's
There's so much history there.
there's so much history there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unbelievable. It's like going into. I tell everybody, and this this is where I tell artists, because a lot of the artists will say, oh, my goal is to be on the Grand Ole Opry, and if I make it on the Grand Ole Opry, I've made it. I've made it. It's, and that is so far from the truth. I mean, it is, and I don't like to burst anybody's bubble or anything, but the Grand Ole Opry, or and other places that have that kind of stature, it's just another venue to perform at. You perform there doesn't mean you've made it. Doesn't mean that you're going to take and go from there to a bigger.
But see how it's played
week.
up. You see the marketing on the. I mean, hey, I paid to walk in there, so I bought a ticket to see the lights.
Yeah. I mean,
but it was great.
I mean, it is. I mean, and there's a lot of places out there that are really great and have a lot of great history. But you've got to take it in context that it's just another piece of the puzzle that you can use to build a body of work.
Mm-hmm. There's so many, and there's just so many artists when I was there on the, playing in all the different venues there.
Yeah.
And they all have the same dream. Is that why they're there? Or they're playing to maybe, to get spotted? I'm assuming.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I always tell people that they got to remember when they come to Nashville, it's not like the movies. You're not going to go down on Broadway and a producer comes in and says, "Oh, where have you been all my life?" And then all of a sudden you're a star. It doesn't work that way.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but people come to Nashville, as long as they come to Nashville for the right reason. They come here to network, they come here to meet people, to work with other people and build and grow, because it's a long process. I mean, I know so many people that have been in this business that have left Nashville because they become jaded of it. Because they come here thinking that it's going to be something, and then it turns out that it's not, and unfortunately that's every business.
I was going to say, anything in life is that way.
It is.
We all try. Everyone tries for something, and it doesn't always work. You got to try to keep going. You have to keep going.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, I have another question for you. Looking ahead with all of your accomplishment, what advice would you give inspiring artists and producers?
The biggest thing that I think needs to be done when you want to be a singer or songwriter or producer, engineer, whatever you want to be, is go out there and learn as much as you can about your craft, because it is a craft and it's a learned craft. You have to take and learn how to sing properly. You have to learn how to sing and put the emotion on the right words, the right phrasing. I mean, it's not just go up there and sing it the way you want to feel, and do the best possible quality work that you can do, because over a period of time, that period of time can be months, years, decades. I mean, it can be anything. But if you go and look at their body of work, then you can see where they started to where they are now, and hopefully they've grown at whatever they're doing. Wow. I mean, because pick out your favorite artist that you like, and go back and listen to that artist when they were first starting out, and see what they are now, because you will see a transformation on how they've grown and developed and evolved and reinvented themselves.
Well, I'll be honest with you, nothing to plug him, but Kid Rock, to me, was one. I mean, he changed his music. I mean, he even did a little country.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Like, he started with a different type of music, then he was doing country, and now he's doing something else. And you can
pick any. Look at Bob Seger. Look at Bob Seger. He started out, he was a rocker, and then all of a sudden,
same thing. Same thing.
He started doing some stuff that kind of crossed over into country, and now he goes out and does some acoustic stuff. He does a full band stuff. He just turned 78 the other day.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. There you go. There's a lot. You can probably name a whole list.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. That's art. That's talent. It's amazing for them to be able to do this.
It is.
But
it is.
Tony, listen, it was great having you on today, and we're going to have to bring you back. Yeah, a lot of knowledge. We learned a lot about the music.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It was great.
Yeah, great.
Tony, how can they find you?
Yeah.
They can find me, of course, on TonyMantor.com. They can go to any social media platform. It's just at Tony Mantor. YouTube is Tony Mantor, and I mean it's pretty easy to find me.
Okay.
Good. We need to have a whole nother podcast
Yeah.
about the food in Nashville. I want to know.
Well, it's funny. I got like 9 million questions I had written down here, and I'm like, and I was just there last week. So yeah, the food and everything, and the restaurants, and all the entertainers were going on here, and all the entertainers buying restaurants, opening restaurants.
Yeah, we'll talk.
They
about
are.
that.
Yeah, that's gonna be another podcast.
Yeah.
Tony, you better get a restaurant.
All right, Tony.
It's all good.
Thank
All right,
you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, thanks.
for
It was
being
great.
on.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Mhm.